I'm Corbett Wall with DV Auction, here with your feeder flash for Monday, May the 9th, brought to you in part by Joplin Regional Stockyards. About 4,000 head for the feeder cattle auction starting about 8 o'clock here on this Monday morning. If you've always been interested in Joplin, you'd like to find some more information about them, if you're going to be on hand at the Four-State Farm Show in Pittsburgh, Kansas, I know Catfish told me he's got 3 or 4 different booths going to be at that big farm show there. They are also going to be helping bring me in there to give a presentation, and I think that's going to be on the 20th in the afternoon there. But check out Joplin Regional Stockyards. They had a heck of a good special bred cow and pair sale last Wednesday in the late afternoon there. Give you a few quotes out of there. They had some bred heifers, a pretty nice package of them, weighed 1040, brings 1750 per head right there. The bred cows, young to middle-aged cows, man, weighing mostly from 11 to 12 and a half, bring from 1200 to 1485, with some, of course, older and plainer bred cows there, selling from 900 to 1250. Now on the pairs, had young 2 to 4 year old pairs there, good cows, and they had good sized calves on them, and I'm talking about good cows, mostly all black, selling from 2100 to 2650. Had some good sized calves on them though, guys, and then some older and plainer calves there, selling from 15 to 17 and a half or so. But awfully good sale there. They'll be having another one of those in early June if you guys are interested in doing that. Factors that are affecting the market, and I always try to give you guys factors that are affecting the market, and we've just got so many of them right now, and they're weighing on one side of the market, on the other. As time goes by, they could switch places, but we are in a really kind of a tough stretch here where our market is searching for direction. Not only our current market situation, which we're going to be going into the slow time here without selling a lot of calves and yearlings during the summertime, because they'll mostly be out enjoying the best part of their life in the summer, turned out somewhere, if there's a place to turn one out. Living here in the central part of Texas Panhandle, can't imagine there being anything that would support cattle to turn out on. But I get around and I've seen places, you know, like Joplin and up in central Missouri, and in fact the whole eastern side of Oklahoma is really wet. Now as soon as you get west of Oklahoma City, it starts getting progressively drier and continues until you get out in New Mexico, and I mean, it is just absolutely horrible out there, and God, we hope we get some rain there at some point. But you look at where we're going here, we've got heavy supplies of market ready big year ago calves there, fat calves, and they were put on feed as fat calves. They've never wanted for anything in their whole life, and they're not going to grade nearly as well, and they're going to quit the guys. Quit gaining efficiently a lot sooner than if they put yearlings on. But we've just about run out of the yearlings. Here in the next few weeks we'll be selling the last of those old croppers and be moving on to mostly calves. Now the quality of the cattle will be good, quality of the carcasses maybe not as good as what we've been seeing. I mean, we're not going to see 85% you know, choice and better on a bunch of calves. That's been, even if they've been on feed for 130 to 150 days, if they're young carcasses like that, they won't have had the maturity to put the marbling in like those old crop yearlings will do. So your packers are not going to like them as well, which is not good, but their carcasses are going to be lighter, which that is kind of good for the market, but we've just got to work through them. They're coming about a month and a half or two earlier than normal. Normally those cattle, those big numbers of cattle, don't hit till August. They would have been out on forage somewhere all through the winter months there, and been running on wheat or running on stockpile grass or something like that. And in fact, that would have given them a little bit more maturity, and would probably allow them to make better feeder cattle. But a lot of those calves were put on feed at a light weight, and they've had enough of that corn and concentrated diet there to make their carcasses better. So it's going to be real curious to see what happens as we start working through those cattle and how much the packers like those cattle. And they've kind of set the market up like they always do when they've got big numbers coming. They've bought a lot of cattle out front, which they always have a lot of cattle, but their needs are fairly small. We have a small percentage of their needs, you know, maybe 25% or less. And so they know they have to fill those needs. Well, they've filled a lot of those needs by buying cattle out front here. And we're going to find out on our next visit with the Monday reports on how many cattle. We know they bought 50,000 head week before last. Now we're going to find out last week how many or what percentage of the decent movement that they bought 2 to 4 weeks out. That will be likely far enough out to get into some of those bigger numbers. And they're really going to set the market up. We've already seen the market start falling on Friday, and so we're in for punishment as far as your market position is. And likely your fat cattle market is going to fall at least $10 a hundred, and I'm saying that conservatively, over the next 6 weeks. I would say it will be more than $10 a hundred over the next 6 weeks. And I'm talking about your fat cattle market. But as soon as we get through all these cattle, and I think it will be by August sometime, I don't know if it'll be the 1st of August, but extremely tight supplies of all classes of cattle after that. So, you know, we've got to get through this tough soupy pit in this mud bog here to get through that. And then once we get to late fall, especially, this market is going to get insane. And you know, it seems high all the time anymore, but we are going to reach levels that we haven't seen since 2014, and I wouldn't be surprised if we don't eclipse that. We have slaughtered so many cows. We know 17 or 18% ahead of last year at this time, as there's such big demand for that, globally especially. We haven't kept many heifers back for the last several years here. Our culling has been extremely tough, and we're going to get to supplies of beef cows that we haven't seen so low since the mid-80s, guys. So we are going to get really, really tight. All your cattle are going to start bringing more, but they have to. We've had severe drought in major cattle producing areas in the northern plains. I was talking to a friend of mine that was up driving in South Dakota over the weekend. He says it's still really dry in a lot of spots in South Dakota. So, you know, they did get some snow in some places. They have had some rain in some places, but some of that big ranch country is still terribly dry up there in the northern plains. It hasn't been widespread rains like it has been down in the Midwest, and especially going into your eastern corn belt like we've seen over the last several weeks here. But our feed costs are out of this world. We've never probably seen cost of gains like this, especially if you include the price of your other inputs, as high as fuel is and all that kind of stuff. Your freight, you've got to include all that. But feed costs are just out of this world, and other input costs. Everything's higher. Everything that you buy to run your operation is higher. You look at the cost of pickups. If you can get one, you know, they're 20,000 higher than they were the last time you bought one, probably, if you can get your hands on one. And don't even think about going in there and haggling them down on the sticker price, because there's somebody standing right behind you that will give it. We've got this Ukraine deal that doesn't seem to be getting any better. It just gets more dismal and depressing every time you see a report on it. And I know we've gotten kind of callous to this deal, but trying to explain how important Ukraine is to the grain production in Europe, it's hard to do, because you know, there's a lot of countries that are used to getting wheat from there, especially, that are worried about not just having tight supplies of food, but worried about starving to death. And you know, what's that going to cause? Our economy sucks. You know, we haven't even made it halfway through this Magoo administration, and now we're looking at significant signs of a recession. And I think we're starting to see that a little bit now. The last few weeks, we've seen box beef cutout values going down right during the time when they normally go up, as we're preparing for all these early summer grilling holidays. But I just don't think that there's a lot of people out there that can afford that product, and likely it's starting to happen that real beef, especially muscle cuts, is starting to be something that not everybody can afford, not nearly as often as they want it. But that's a luxury. You look at some of these prices for just ribeyes and things like that. A lot of your people, especially the lower middle class and going well into the middle class, they look at that and they just think, we can't do that anymore. We can't do that right now. And now we see inners starting to go up. We've been borrowing cheap money for so long here, we've kind of forgot about that. And it hasn't gotten crazy yet, but when they start raising it half points at a time to try to get this inflation under control that comes from printing too much money and throwing it at people, that's a tough deal. And so now we have to start thinking a little bit harder about the money that we borrow to run our operations too, because it's coming into play, guys. But lots of factors, and we'll continue to talk about them as we go forward. Let's talk about your board for last week. June live cattle futures, Monday was up big. We know that, especially on feeder cattle. We never really understood completely why. Your corn was down, I think, 10 cents on Monday, and down another 10 maybe on Tuesday. But it didn't justify the gains that we saw in our feeder cattle especially. But live cattle futures on Monday were up 2.55. Tuesday was up just 12 cents, and then they took most of it all back. Wednesday down 50, Thursday down $1.05, and Friday down $1.02, with June live cattle futures ending the week at 132.75. Your August contracts ended the week at 135.35. When do you remember your August being higher than June live cattle contracts? You don't. How about made feeder cattle? Monday was up 5.07. A lot of us didn't think we could reach 5 without a limit move the previous day, but there it was, up 5.07 on Monday. Tuesday was up 97 cents, and then it fell also. Wednesday was down just 15, but Thursday down $1.92. Friday down 77. May feeder cattle ended the week at 159.55. August ended the week at 174.70. Look at your grains ending the regular session at the end of Friday there. July corn ended the week at 7.84 3/4. Soybeans 16.22 a bushel, and Kansas City hard red winter wheat 11.70 1/2 cent a bushel there. Fat cattle trade through Thursday of last week, we had 91,800 head sold negotiated in your 5-area feeding region. That compares to the big week we had the week before, 117,000 nearly. And then same week a year ago was much lighter at 73,500 head. But you look at your prices on live steers and heifers last week, they ranged from 138 to 148.50. Big range in there, big premium in the northern plains and up in the Midwest, where they have those better grading carcasses up there. But that spread, your price spread was steady to $2 lower, but your weighted average was actually higher because we had more of those cattle up there in the northern plains selling at that higher price. Weighted average through Thursday anyway was 143.43. That was actually up a little over a dime compared to same time a week ago. But we'll find out on our next report whenever we get all the sales for the whole week totaled up. But dress sales were not quite so good. Just tougher to get market on the dressed selling there. $2 to $3 lower, from $228 to $234. Your weighted average up through Thursday on dressed steers was $231.60. That was down from $0.50 to $1 right there. So, and we had a little bit more trade on Friday. Colorado even printed again on Friday. 100 head confirmed there, still less than 2,000 head negotiated in Colorado for the week, but we saw 148 paid on Friday in Colorado, they had sold all the rest of them up to that at 146. But we're having a regional packer come in there, and they're just creaming the best cattle that they have in Colorado and buying those negotiated. And we're getting to see it because we brought a third player in there. Normally just two packers participating in Colorado. How about Iowa? About 400 head is all. About 25,000 for the week, which is good movement there. But on Friday, just some dress sales at 232. Nebraska, 2,300 head on Friday. 38,100 head for the week. And live sales at 146. Had some dress sales off the market. Not sure about that. Kansas just had a couple loads on there on Friday, a little over 19,000 for the week, and we saw 138 confirmed on Friday. We hadn't seen 138. We had seen 139 in Kansas on, you know, a few cattle, not a ton of them, but enough to mention it. And then on Friday we saw 138. So our market is already sucking back, guys, and it is going to drop like a rock. Unless some of these sellers stand up to these packers, but they don't have much of a leg to stand on because everybody's been selling them for 2 to 4 weeks out, or even further out than that, which actually makes them more of a forward contract, so we don't see that in our negotiated sales. These packers are going to be set and good going in to the time when the show lists get heavier with these market-ready cattle. Texas didn't have any confirmed sales on Friday. They were resisting that to 138. They sold all their cattle at 140 in Texas last week. Kansas mostly, but there late in the week they started peeling back just a little bit. But 10,600 head confirmed negotiated in Texas, which is still pretty darn good. Box beef cutout values, I told you they've been lower. Your weighted average on all of last week's sales, 258.29 on choice, down 492. And your late sales on Friday were about $4 less than the weighted average, so they're still falling. Selects 246.83 on the weighted average. That was down $6, and your weighted average was about $1 lower than that, or almost $2 lower than that on Friday late there. But your choice select spread is about $11.50. I would think it could be more than that, but 626 loads of cuts, grinds, and trimmings, which is a pretty decent movement there. Your slaughter, 657,000 with a decent Saturday, especially with Mother's Day on Sunday there, but a decent Saturday of 49,000 harvested. But that 657,000 was 8,000 more than last week, 18,000 more than the same week a year ago. Really healthy slaughter right there. But I would like to give you periodically some prices on some cheaper cattle. I always advertise the highest cattle, and I get criticized for that for some people because they say, well, we don't want to hear those, you know, those whorehouse prices, you know, on the best feeders anywhere. Well, a lot of people do like to hear them. And I don't give them on just a few head, not a bumper pull trailer load. Try to always make sure it's at least a load of cattle, if not a long string. But, you know, whenever our input costs are high and we've got to save some money somewhere, most of the time you make your money when you buy them. You're either buying performance, you're buying quality, or you're buying price, which gets you ahead of the game there. Well, if you're looking to get some cattle laid in, kind of worth the money, my old buddy Ellison Carter there, Santo, Texas, which is just west of Weatherford, Texas there. He's got order buyers all over central Texas there, and he sends out a lot of loads to guys in the Texas Panhandle, western Oklahoma, western Kansas, up through there, up into your bigger grazing areas. But these are loads of cattle that he shipped out on Sunday, and he gives me a rundown, which is pretty transparent right there, guys. He's just telling us what they are. I'm giving them to you guys. It's something you could expect if you're interested in something like that. EllisonCarterCattle.com. But on the steers, load weight 300 pounds, all black at 192 1/4. Tell you what, you get into those worth the money. 355 pound little steer boys, there'd be some bulls on them, but all black at 186.75. Pretty good cattle there with a little bit of color on them, but mostly solid colored cattle, but sure good enough. Weigh 405, all boys at 181, 430 pounders at 174 and a quarter. 550 pound load of plainer type steer cattle. They'd be colored up quite a bit and then be mixed in quality at 144 and a quarter though, guys. We're seeing those sell well over $2 in places. But 655 pound load of yearling stockers headed up into a big grazing area there at 158 and a quarter. How about the heifers? Load of little heifers weighing 325 on the plain side at 159. Another load weighing 4 and a quarter on the heifer side. They'd be plainer at 148.85. Load of fancy heifers weighing 480 at 165. Load of plainer heifers weighing the same at 480 at 143 and a quarter. So they're over $20 cheaper on those plainer cattle, guys. 565 pound load of fancy heifers at 150. Some on the plainer side weighing 580 at 142. 605 pound load of yearling stocker heifers there at 150. 675 pound load of black cattle going to the feed yard at 145. And then some big old heifers weighing 875 at $112. That's what you could expect there, guys. But let's talk about your feeder cattle market and your big sales. Last week, your real-time index on DV auction ended the week at 155.87. That was $1.82 higher than what it ended the previous week. So we gained ground all mostly from the futures being up so much on Monday. That set the pace higher, and once you get that thing rolling on the cash, it's going to continue higher. You can't turn your cash market on a dime like that. But on Tuesday, if you guys want to pay attention to this, Alma Livestock Auction in Alma, Nebraska is having a fire relief rollover hay auction there at 1 o'clock Tuesday, tomorrow, May the 10th. They're a DV auction customer. I'm not sure if they're going to be in there on the block having those sales where you can bid on DV auction, but get a hold of them at Alma Livestock Auction. They've got one semi-load of alfalfa hay there. I'm sure they're round bales there, donated by the manager there, Nate and Dina Dunce, and they are going to sell that hay. They've got it all ready. It's tax deductible. They've got an account set up. They've had some major fires in that area in Nebraska. You don't hear about wildfires in Nebraska very often, but it's decimated the budgets for some of those volunteer fire departments. So that could be a really good deal if you just want to get on and see how that goes, or get a hold of them. They can make a cash donation. Like I said, it's tax deductible. How about your cash feeders and your sales last week? Steady to $3 higher. Calves were uneven. Weaned calves higher most everywhere. Fleshy ballers were lower. Well, imagine that. Happens just like it does in the fall of the year whenever we start getting through into some of those calves that are big enough and they're not weaned. Nobody really wants them. Talk about some of your stick out sales late in the week last week. How about Turlock Livestock Auction Yard in Turlock, California? Sold 89 head of 614 pound steers at $171. And they had some early moisture back there in the winter, but they haven't seen that follow through too well either. There's a lot of dry spots out there. Big quote that I didn't get on last Friday, as I didn't have all the information, but likely one of the largest string quotes in a brick and mortar sale that we'll see all year long. And we see them every year, but this will be one of the biggest strings all year. We might see some others close to that. But at 3 state stockyards in Falls City, Nebraska, that's the Witt's establishment there, they sell the Hermish Brothers steers there, and it's a big long string of them, guys. They come from just south of there, just over into the edge of Kansas there. But 600 head in one swath, through a sale barn, through the ring, weighed up, 917 pounds on the average, bring $150. Big time quote. How about Crawford Livestock Market in Crawford, Nebraska? 163 head, 685 pound stocker steers at $194. They sold some feeder steers there. A load of them weighed 880 at 164.50. Wow. But top quote late last week on Friday, your Rowgrow top quote for the day, come out of Montana Livestock Auction in Ramsey, Montana. 212 head of 593-pound steers weighing nearly 6, way up there in Montana. They've had some moisture, but not a drought-busting moisture yet. But 593-pound steers weighing 206.75. That's your feeder flash for Monday.